Hello everyone, and welcome to another video. I am Jacksepticeye, and in this one I'm gonna go on a little bit of a rant, a little bit of a thought process I've had going on over the last couple of days due to some forum posts that I've been seeing around the place. And that is on the topic of, does fast travel trivialize open world games? I also want to talk about it because stuff that has come out recently about Dark Souls 2 and The Witcher 3, apparently those two games are going to have fast travel in it right from the start of the game. Dark Souls, they said you can warp between bonfires pretty much from the start. I don't know if it's right at the beginning or anything, but a lot sooner than you were able to do in Dark Souls 1. And The Witcher 3 is said to have the exact same fast travel system as Skyrim has. Which I think these things could hurt the game if they're not properly implemented. Bit of a controversial topic, I guess, and probably one that a lot of people are gonna dislike my opinion for. But that's okay, everyone has different opinions, everyone can like and dislike different things. I'm just here to sort of say my thoughts on the aspect of fast travel in video games. I'm going to use Skyrim as an example because it's one of the biggest open world games, if not the biggest open world game to date, and a lot of people really like it, a lot of people fucking hate it, and I'm sort of, I wouldn't say I hate it, but I'm sort of middle of the road. I'm more towards the side of not liking it, despite having loved it when it first came out. But that's not important. I'm not here to say why I like and dislike Skyrim. So I'm going to get into the topic of, does fast travel trivialize open world games? And I think it does. Mainly because fast travel in video games is something that kind of eliminates tedium and backtracking for players. But what I think happens is if you design a game with fast travel in it, kind of like the way Skyrim has it, when you reach a place, you can instantly fast travel to it from absolutely anywhere in the world, and there's no penalty for doing it. It's what I'd call sort of unlimited fast travel. It's not really, it's not like Oblivion where you leave a place and you suddenly can go fucking anywhere, but it is kind of the same. You can do it as many times as you want without any penalty, without paying anything, you just go through a little loading screen and you're there. But when you design your game around fast travel, well, not really design it around it, but design the game from the ground up with fast travel in it from the start, it kind of becomes a crutch for the quest system in the game. What tends to happen is that you get a mission or a quest from somebody in the game, and then they say, oh, go here and talk to this person. And when you go out and you see your map, the person is like the whole way across the map. At least it is in Skyrim for a lot of the missions. And when you get to that person, they say, oh yeah, well, I'll help you if you go and kill this person here. And then it's like halfway across the map again. Of course, that's kind of over-exaggerating. A lot of the missions aren't like that and they're just really short. But a lot of the missions are like that as well. And I think they just use it as a fact to like pad out the game or fill in parts of the game rather than actually developing a proper quest. And Skyrim does this because I think Skyrim is way too big. It's just big for the sake of being big, and a lot of the stuff in it doesn't really have any substance. It's all just very nice environments, but the world could actually be a lot smaller, and the quest system should have been more balanced out and more thought out to give you some proper quests to go on, some proper missions to do, rather than just having all these little fetch quests that pad out the game and sort of brag about it being a 500-hour game or 200-hour game. Basically what I'm trying to say is that designing a game with fast travel in mind from the ground up can almost lead to some bad game design choices. You can end up falling back on the fast travel mechanic far too often, and it leads to some pretty shitty quests that aren't really thought out. If you have to implement fast travel in your game like this because backtracking is too tedious or time consuming or something like that, it usually means that your world isn't really designed properly, or it isn't very dynamic or worthwhile to walk around in, other than to just look at pretty sights. which is all Skyrim really does. If you went to a certain area and then when you had to backtrack, if they actually changed up what happened or changed up the environment a small bit, then it wouldn't be so tedious and it would be actually fun to go back through the world multiple times. Now, I should say that I don't think all fast travel is bad in all open world games. Just the type that is sort of unlimited or that you don't have any penalty for or isn't really contextual to the world itself. Something like Grand Theft Auto 4, you could do fast travel, but it was in taxis or cabs, whatever you want to call them, and you actually had to pay to use them. And this worked really well because it made sense in the world of Grand Theft Auto 4. It didn't feel like you suddenly had magical powers where you could just zip from one area to the next. I also think it's kind of a thing that has come with the newer age of gaming. People just want to rush straight through a game, do the story as fast as possible, and they don't want to actually sit in the world and immerse themselves until it's like their second or third playthrough. First time through, they almost want to rush it and have the story out of the way, and then sort of enjoy the world afterwards. A proper game should be designed where you want to sit in the world for as long as possible and you don't actually want the game to end. Some games have been able to do fast travel in the past and do it extremely well. They had fast travel in it, but it wasn't where you could just click on anything and go anywhere you wanted. Something like, say, Final Fantasy IX, which I'm replaying again. You only got fast travel later on in the game when you got airships, and at the time it made perfect sense for the game. And it still wasn't a part where you could just click on one area and go to it. You actually had to go into the big world map and fly around faster. So it was fast travel, but it wasn't instant warp travel. It was actually just faster than going on foot. And you could click on certain towns and the airship would just go on its own and it was fine. But it worked so well for the game, contextually. It actually felt right and it didn't suddenly pull you out of the experience. A game that nailed fast travel, I think, is Dark Souls. You could warp to bonfires, but that was much, much later in the game. It was almost at the end of the game, and while it came a small bit too late, the game had a terrific way of actually getting you around the world faster without actually taking you out of the experience. You would go on these long, meandering paths down all these hallways and corridors and everything, and then you'd open a door and suddenly you were back where you started, and that experience was just mind-blowing to think, wow, I actually made a shortcut all the way back to here, and next time I don't actually have to go all the way around, I can just take this shortcut and I'm back where I want to go. And when you actually got the ability to warp to bonfires later in the game, it made sense and it came at the perfect time. Now, there are people out there who have been saying to me, well, if you don't like fast travel, then just don't use it in the game. And I get where you're coming from. That makes sense. It is the most logical answer you could probably think of for something like that. I would probably say it myself if my opinion was different. But when you design a game with the fast travel in mind from the ground up, some of the design of the game tends to fall short of what it should be. That's why Dark Souls is so good. When you get the fast travel later in the game, it is later in the game, and the first 3/4 of the game didn't rely on it, and the design of the first levels of the game actually reflect that. It's almost as if Dark Souls is so confident in the world and level design that it's built, that it forces you to go back through it multiple times to actually see it and understand where you're going. You get a real sense of the world you're in, and you don't have to rely on a map to tell you where to go. And this is sort of where Dark Souls 2 and The Witcher 3 come in. Because Dark Souls 1 was designed without fast travel in mind right from the start, the level design, like I said, really reflected the ingenuity of connecting the whole place together. But Dark Souls 2 is supposed to have fast travel in it from the start, where you can warp between bonfires that you have lit. The dev said he wanted to eliminate the tedium and backtracking that was in Dark Souls 1, which leads me to believe that they're actually going to cut out a lot of the sort of interconnectedness, if that's even a word, that the first Dark Souls had, where you had this one giant area that had all these paths connecting it, and it felt like one really big, solid world. And I really hope that they don't trivialize it in Dark Souls 2 just to make the game kind of go a bit faster or flow a bit faster. Sometimes it's good to just sit back, relax, be patient, and experience the world you're in. And that's why I'm afraid for The Witcher 3 as well. The Witcher 2 had a pretty small world, let's face it. But the world was just so extremely dense with activity and people and everything that it felt really good to be in. And if The Witcher 3 needs to have fast travel in it like that, maybe it's a sign that your world is a little too big, or you made it too big just for the sake of it. Of course, this is all just speculation, and The Witcher 3 and Dark Souls 2 could be extremely similar to their predecessors and actually hold up well, and the fast travel could be implemented very well. But this is just sort of my thoughts on what I think is going to happen, and kind of why I'm apprehensive about them implementing fast travel into the games. Fast travel in your games is not bad in and of itself, but it's when it becomes a necessity or when you need it in your game that it becomes bad. It usually means that your game is badly designed or your world is badly designed, that you don't want people going through it multiple times or they'll get really bored or point out some of the flaws in it. So let's hope that The Witcher 3 and Dark Souls 2 actually implement fast travel well, and that it makes sense for the world that it's in, and it doesn't sort of do away with a lot of what the game is about and the world that they're in, and they just kind of toss it off as, well, just fast travel to this location because we don't want you running halfway across the map. But those are just my thoughts. If you guys feel differently, which I know a lot of people do, I've been talking on forums about it, and a lot of people have like really differing opinions on it. So please let me know in the comments. I am all for discussion, and I will try and reply to everyone who actually has something to say about it. So yeah, thanks for watching, and if you like the video, please rate it. If you don't like the video, rate it as well. It will let me have good feedback of what I have to do next to make my videos better. And if you like my content, please subscribe. I am extremely appreciative to anyone who subscribes or watches any of my content. It's very flattering. So thanks guys, and I will see you all in the next video.